Hi everybody, welcome back to Thrive with Mulungi. So as you are starting today's episode, I hope that you pause, get a cup of water, a cup of tea, whatever your favorite drink of choice is. Make sure it allows you to drive afterwards, guys. Yeah, let's be very responsible. And as you're doing that, let a friend know, like, subscribe, comment, join in, because a lot of times I find that we leave most of the decision making to politicians. We leave it to the parents, the guardians, or we love to use the big old word society. Newsflash, you and I and Alan make society, and that is why we have these very crucial conversations. So in today's edition, I am not just having one person. I'm having two amazing ladies that are not new to you, and we're just going to talk about the aspect of menstruation, sexual reproductive health, and the reality, the cost of this. Because again, one thing about this generation and Gen Zs and the alphas and the betas is, I would say, we are very informed. We have the terminologies, but like the Ugandans say, "Ku ground." What does that look like? Does that really translate? Are we taking HIV as seriously as we should? But also, what are other women and girls' experiences? And these two ladies, I know, are going to do such an amazing job of painting for you a clear picture of what that looks like. So I'm actually very glad I get to have the honor of introducing our two guests today. And I will start with Kanyomozi Rwaboni. And in case you have been in the space when we talk about ending period poverty, you probably have come across the work that Yambi Community does. Matter of fact, they recently just concluded a collaboration with Joshua Baraka, and they gave out over 1,000 sanitary towels in Kawempe. So Rwaboni is very, very passionate about advocating for access to sanitary material, promoting comprehensive menstrual and uterine health education through her organization Yambi. She has a group of young, amazing people that she does this work with. So when it comes to everything knowledge on managing your health, dignity, knowledge, and support, please welcome with me Kanyomozi Rwaboni. And the crowd goes,
"Hey friends, how are ya?"
Welcome to Thrive with Mulungi.
Finally.
Right. But we do have a story to tell there. And for those of you that are no strangers to Dr. T, as she's commonly referred to, we have Dr. Nyamurungi, and she is a lady that wears many hats. One, most of you may have taken your babies to her, and she's probably taken care of them as a pediatrician, but she's mostly a health worker. She also loves to use her platforms to educate you on your digital health. She loves to talk about maternal health, sexual reproductive health. She calls you out on your bluff sometimes. She talks about wellness, and she uses her platforms, that's Instagram and TikTok, to bring these concepts to the real normal Ugandan. And I love that she uses language that we understand. I think she's one of those doctors that understands her own handwriting. So please do welcome with me Dr. T. It's so nice to have you on Thrive with Mulungi. You guys. Yeah, because have you seen how these guys can describe for you a drug? And then you look at it, but no, I have a feeling she knows how to, like when she writes for you, if it's Mabendazo, it's Mabendazo. Welcome to the show, ladies.
Thank you.
We are tasked to talk about the health crisis in the country, but also a bit around the anti-rights movement. One of the things about us being a global village is it's no longer when France sneezes, the world catches a cold. It's when the United States makes certain reforms, when European countries make certain reforms, they affect us quite directly. So I want us to just humanize the cost around menstruation. I like that, later on you get to see what Muntua Wansi thinks about certain conversations, and I love that you give your 2 cents. And I'm very excited to do this with you too. So I will start definitely with you, Kanyomozi. You've just concluded a community outreach most times when you see Kanyomozi, she's either saying, guys, donate,
Give your money.
give your money.
Holding.
Exactly. And also because we are seeing the global shift in how fundraising looks like, and we now have to come back and solve our own problems. Firstly, well done. How was Kawempe?
It was interesting. So we usually do school activations, not community ones. It was interesting.
I saw a talent.
I got to a point and the talent show was
well.
fantastic. The kids, your people have talent for real. People
What
do
was
have
it
talent.
like for you to meet the ladies in Kawempe? I saw, Yambi Community, the team handing over pamphlets on menstruation and how to actually, because most times we just drop the pads there and we come take our nice photos, we do our reels,
And they say, guys, we'll give
then we complain, definitely.
Yeah.
But what is it like, not just for Kawempe, but for the communities, for the work that you've been doing? What does that speak to the cost of ladies not even being able to afford something as crucial as sanitary towels?
Yeah. So I think for us, with our first outreaches, when we're just organizing as a charity, we used to just do the pads, take our photos, and then leave. But then we realized there's so many questions that people don't have answers to, and for us it meant a lot not to just receive, but to also understand what's going on in your body. So that's why we do the pamphlets. And the more we have the conversations, the more we're able to refine the work that we do and the information that we give. So for a lot of the girls, then we have situations where they're asking, my pain on a scale of 1 to 10 is at 8 every single period. So then you know that, yes, we'll give you the pads, but you won't come to school because you're in pain, and your sick bay is like the size of here. So they're not going to give you the girl that's menstruating to sleep. It's not possible. So then finding solutions for that, for your diet, for your exercise, for how to manage prior to that period coming. Then we also have questions around like irregularities, and my period comes in January and then I don't see it again in September. What's the reason? Who should I see? Am I worried? And all of those things. And what we see for us, how that impacts the communities, we have girls who are bolder to ask and not to assume. They are questioning and taking charge, because with the schools that we now go back into do the focus groups, and that's why we prefer schools, because we can actually hear back. So we've given pads in January. September, what is the experience? Are the pads enough? What more do you need? What information do you need? We've had people in the health sector come and visit and actually have these conversations with these girls and do better. So we get to see what communities actually intervening in solving one problem. Even if we're keeping a school of 100 girls in school, that's enough for us. Yeah.
I want to ask something.
Yeah.
What kind of pads do you give these girls?
So we give reusable pads.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's very helpful, because I was thinking, if you're giving them the disposable ones, then how frequently are you going to
I will
be
use
using
it,
them?
yes. And again, that wasn't sustainable for us, because
Yeah.
you as a person, okay, I personally need 2 packs of pads. Do we have the funding capacity to give 2 packs every single month? Because we're not just leaving it to a 10. So with the pads that we have, they take 2 years if taken care of well, but safely. And then we keep our schools on the radar, so we can still go back to supply to those specific schools and we keep growing according to the capacity to give to those communities that we visit. Yeah.
I think that's really very commendable, because again, there should be dignity in menstruating. And interestingly, this month, this very one that we've just started, is Menstrual Health Awareness and Management Month, and I'm glad that we're actually having this conversation around this time. So I also would like to know from you, Dr. T, you would definitely be called one of the new age doctors. Yeah, but also the fact that you are a younger woman occupying a space like that. What has that spoken to you in your experience? Because for a very long time, this has been a space that would, especially when you look at the Uganda's history, women were usually nurses. They were either midwives. They look to be like a space where you're here to assist. Not that there is anything bad about that, but now when we see doctors like you come up and you are taking up space, what has that journey been like for you? And are there any, like, someone out there that probably is wondering, I'm a woman, but you see, when I get married, my degree will be somewhere in the cupboard. What has that for you? What has your journey spoken to you about? And that's something that you would love to share with us.
I like the question. So what I remember, most of us when we are training as females, still in very many places, like they would still see you as a nurse. And again, there's nothing wrong with being a nurse, but I think that when someone can only see you in that lens, it means that there's actually something wrong with their lens. I remember when I was doing my internship, so there was this young boy, I am Chiga, and I had gone to a Chiga land in the village. So this boy comes, can I use the language? I feel like
please.
there's more authenticity in using my language. Anyway, so this boy comes and he was like, maybe like 7. So they tell him, I think he was sick, and then they tell him, hey, the doctor is going to come and see you, yada yada. And so then after like a few minutes, I come and I walk in. So they're like, hey, the doctor is here. And then he said, oh, utakasa kuba the doctor.
At 7.
At 7, I did that big Chiga voice. Then I'm like, oh, interesting. I didn't even want to comment because I was like, I don't have energy to start right now.
Yeah.
And then they were like, no, that's the doctor. And he was like, I was sure I know about a doctor because never
It's so funny, but it's
and the funny thing is, it's the guy who was the nurse who was telling him that the doctor is coming. So imagine how in his eyes he's very shocked that now the person who is saying is the nurse is the one I thought was a doctor, and all that. But I think for me, I think one of the videos that I did recently was about, for me, I am very privileged. That is a fact. And I am very privileged based on the society from which I come.
Yes.
I have a lot of support behind me. I genuinely do. That is something that I continuously acknowledge. I know for a fact that there are women that came before me that couldn't even stand a chance. And I think that there are so many of us as well. For me, I come from a family that is like, my parents are not like rich, what, although I was always told that I look like a rich kid. But my parents were not like rich, financially not rich. I mean, we're okay, but not like you're wealthy, I don't know, eh? But for me, my parents are always behind me like years. Although even my mom, as empowered as she is, I would always say, oh, you're your mother's daughter, I am very much like her. She would sometimes be like, but you're doing this, aren't you going to scare a man? Like somehow it would come out of her, and I would tell her, but if I am scaring a man, that means he's not the one for me. Also, another thing is, it's not my priority to really like mold myself to fit in that capacity. And then that is my thought process, which has been shaped by different things. But again, I do understand women who think differently about it. But also for me, marriage has always been something that I respect severely, but I also see the damage that it has done, especially when it is done wrong. So for me, I'm not someone that would be willing to compromise on ATCG. This guy is like, he's showing everything that is wrong with him, but you're like, because I have to be married.
Your favorite color is red.
No, not really. But then also my parents were the kind of people tell you, get married, idiot. But also I am a bit assertive. And if I say this person is not, something is wrong with them, it is. Also, I'll take you to God and be like, me, this man, I don't understand him. Show me the red flags. At times I see them, please, what do you mean? Out, exit, you're not going to be there.
The clown is not your favorite actor at the circus.
And another thing that I feel, I have two thoughts that I think most people don't, I don't know. One, I believe that love alone is not enough. Two, I believe that I will heal. So it doesn't matter. Oba, you come home, Oba, I'm badly in love. Please, I will unplug myself
and move on.
And I will start healing. I cry, then I heal. I cry, then cement, because I believe that people, and for both men and women, the only difference is that we live in a society where men, I don't know, men are here, they tend to say that we like to say men are the bad people or whatever. You can say what you think. But I think not that they are bad people, but I think that we come from a society which already naturally we have been trying to unsuppress women. So it means that if you're in a place where they're telling you must submit, chances are high that you who are telling to submit and calm down and what, you're going to be the least beneficiary from the thing.
Yeah.
So I think so many people's dreams have been suppressed externally, like, you know, certain things.
Socialization as well.
Very true. But also, then, after taking it to God, I also got married to a good man. Honestly, like a man who does not, like, I can be there and like you have the horriblest days. He's not going to be like, hey, they come and cook for me because you're my wife. My husband. He'll be like, no, madam, you sleep because you're not going to run mad. But I also understand, and I've also seen women in my same field and not who don't have the same privilege. Yeah. So honestly, that's why I say for me, I am severely privileged. But also I like to think that I'm a very sharp babe. In terms of if something is wrong, like I am my own worst critic, but I also tend to like overanalyze. I think of myself like an observer. So I think that's me, but I think we've come a long way and we have a long way to go. But I think so far we are doing well. And the more there are voices that are being shown onto these things, then more people get enlightened. Even now there are men who are also, like they see that something is wrong with the system. So I think that's what I think.
So awareness really does aid what's it called, mindset change a lot. So you people don't stop talking. Just keep you know, because we sometimes I sit with the African Americans where I talk about representation, but I also think even here it's taken women breaking barriers and saying, hey, I mean, Yvonne dared to run for presidency at 33 years old, and you know, if you have women who are stepping up and taking up space, then it's going to be very easy. Okay, slightly easier for society to be like, hey, you mean you also can? Thank you for sharing that, Dr. T. So let's talk about stigma and especially amongst adolescents. We come from deeply cultural societies. And I use societies because we are multi-tribal, and even in those tribes there are clans, and there are all these practices, and now we are like moving from one space into another. We're just covering of people, and I'd like to speak into, as someone that has worked, is continuously working around menstrual health and menstrual justice. Kanyomozi, how do you think culture has shaped shame, especially around SRHR, and how does that affect young girls? But also I would like to sneak in the boys, especially in the conversations around menstruation. Why this is important for me is these are the ones that later become our policy makers. I don't even want to first burden them as brothers, as husbands. No, they later on become our teachers. They later on become our lecturers. And for us, something as natural as menstruation, different as it manifests, they might come on the same day, but we all experience it a bit differently. How does shame and cultural norms still stifle these conversations, and how can we break out of that based off your experience as someone at the front line?
I think I wouldn't put culture aside from religion. I went and do you watch an exhibition? I attended the Because of Her exhibition.
Yes.
And I saw that culturally, like before we really got into the Christianity thing, and I'm a Christian, really got into the Christianity thing, women before us were doing this period tracking, they were doing
with moon beads,
with moon beads, and they were doing different types of practices to manage their reproductive health, right? But then we've got like now traditions that shame religions that shame contraceptives, like I've had with Catholicism. The child is a blessing, and I also had conversations with my friends who don't believe in contraceptives, and they're like, "We've got to allow." I'm like, "What do you mean? As long as you kiss, you got to allow." So cute. It shall happen. So again, I think it's what you had mentioned. A lot of conversations and pushing to have those conversations. I remember one of the schools we went to, we had a boy very interesting 7-year-old boy. He's like, I want to be an RDC. And I remember telling the principal, this is why we need him in the room, because if we don't teach the boys, and they don't know how important it is for people to get subsidized products.
Yes.
They don't know how important it is for in their hospital when a woman comes and she's complaining about extreme menstrual pain, to go through all the necessary checks to be able to diagnose her and not tell her, just take this Panadol instead, or you're not exercising, or it's because you've gained weight, that's why the pain is so much. If we don't have this conversation to teach these boys, then we are putting them in positions where even if they can't even assume that empathy, because they have no knowledge. So you will be a boss and you will have a woman who either is struggling with PCOS, and you can't give her 2 work from home days, because just like, but all the women go through periods, until you sit down and have a conversation about endometriosis or PCOS, and you're like, this is not the same. I can't use that TikTok but I've forgotten it. But this is not the same thing that everyone is going through. So again, it's a lot of conversations about what is happening and why it's happening and how intense it is for some people and how it's not. I remember the first time we were trying to fundraise within our communities and speaking to men and explaining that people can't afford 3,000 Uganda shillings for disposable pads, and they're like, 3,000? What do you mean? Because again, this is someone who said water is 5k, bring no problem. But then there's households that have 4 daughters who are menstruating around the same time because of Bluetooth periods, and those girls are using mattresses and they're using socks and all of that. But again, it's also been a conversation of, when we go into these communities and we hold these facilitations and these workshops, you have to meet people where they are. Even with contraceptive conversations, I think when we go to school and we have a lot of English and we know that this is the right thing you should be doing, we now want to bring that a lot of English to people who have been told A, B, C, and D for many years. I think reframing our conversations to this is which community? This is in Tinder. People in Tinder think like this. So if we're going to teach them about contraceptives, if we're going to, even with the senior women who would refuse to have the boys in the classes, if we're going to coerce them into letting the boys sit into the sessions, what language works for them? So to them, but you know, these boys, they're going to be teachers. I imagine the teacher doesn't know. Like, you don't say, but I think the boys should be, liberated. They should also have the information. You don't go like that. You go slowly and surely. Even with conversations on contraceptives, you're going into communities where women who, just to make that decision, need consent from their husbands, or they're going to get beaten. And then you can't go and now shout on the top of, and these men are the ones who now control who can enter these communities to talk to the women in their communities. So you have to go. So if it means going and soothing and ego to, that's my belief. My thing is, get it done, whatever it takes. So you go and understand, how do they need to be spoken to, who will they listen to. If I'm the one who's a ED of Yambi and I want to have these conversations, but the men are just going to look at me and be like, this bitch, with all that English, let her get out of our space. Then you look for Alan and you're like, Alan, come and judge these guys for me so that I can be able to get to the people who need that knowledge. So I think applying tactics that will get the work done versus, because culturally, the shame is still there around the conversations, the fear, the lack of like easy knowledge. Like, I want to understand. I remember even up to now, shame on me, but like, I want to understand what contraceptive works for my body. But now if I go, the chick is going to look at me and she'll say I don't have a ring, so she's going to think I'm having sex. Oh my god, does she think I'm like, hey?
I tell her how about when we be saying pregnant women and we're like, Panang, this one was doing
She doesn't think I'm having sex. I want to ask her, should I use a pill, should I use an implant? Like, I mean, obviously I'm experimenting or not, but I want to start to experiment. But now, okay, the shame will always be there. So the easier we make the information accessible, the better. If we have, because now what I really like with also Kenya and TikTok is a lot of their health workers are doing what Dr. T is doing. So you just call and they'll be explaining IUDs and they'll be explaining non-hormonal contraceptives. It's like, oh, okay, so it's not scary, buying a condom or forcing and saying, I'm not partaking in your party if there's no condom. Like, understanding that this is, like, I must take care of myself first, and I and using a language that speaks to the people who you're speaking to. Yeah.
One of the things that I do a lot, especially recently, or one of the things I have endeavored to be as a doctor in my practice, endeavored, is you see that I teach on social media. When I'm with my patients, my God, we have conferences, like we shall talk, but whenever I'm having these conversations, the husband has to be there. Unless you have no partner, or you get the baby, like there's when the person is not in the picture. But as long as in the picture, and the funny thing is, they always actually have so many questions. And the partners genuinely want to understand what's happening. Every time you alienate the person from there is someone who is just bad-mannered. There is that person. There is someone who just wants to be ignorant where they are, or just wants to be laissez-faire with knowledge. There's different. But I kid you not, for me, my experience is whenever I engage them, and not even just menstruation, I always be like, now we have had a baby. This is how we breastfeed. These are the danger signs. I want to teach the both of you so that in case anything falls through the cracks and you forget something, your partner will remember. Not your mother. I don't want to have the conversation with you and your mom because they like bringing the mom. And I call the husband. I am not having this family conversation without. Because this baby was made with a man and a woman. When it comes to breastfeeding, teacher, this is how we latch. Not how she latch. This is how the baby will latch on your boob. So even and it's always funny, I find the guys always coming and be like, okay, so then how do we position? And the gun is calling you. So then so what do you do? Then the guy comes and tells you, but the kiddo is over pooping. Is something wrong? But like you see that there is a clear gap.
Yeah, that's the first time he's hearing about
being alienated completely. And whenever you say these are conversations for women, you end up further alienating these, and who suffers? It's the woman. You're still going to suffer because this person does not understand the extent to which the situation goes.
I also think it's a cultural thing. Remember when I said that you're now all cultures mixed?
Very true.
I claim my Uganda side. I'm partly Uganda and partly Msoga. And you see that, I think back then growing up, especially culturally in Uganda, there were things that were for women. I don't know what that was meant to serve. I don't know whether that was meant for us to have our own thing, but it affects us greatly. Where to date, even grown women, they will have a pad and they will first look for something to hide it under. Because I remember I worked somewhere and everyone would be like, Manlango, you're feminist. Everyone must know. I'm like, but what is wrong? So it's so deeply cultural that now we who need to know better, like how you're saying the knowledge gap, we are subconsciously and cautiously continuing the same. I don't even think sometimes it's a thing of, my boys go away. But I think when you look at the sengas, the matrons, in Buganda, they would take you to your aunt when you're bordering adolescents, and they would take the boys to the koja. So the lines were very clear. Which is a thing we can't afford now. Like you're saying, that thing of childbirth is a woman's thing. We now don't have the privilege of community because back then it was your aunt, your mom, the women would perform that labor. But now, like you've said, we live in our apartments. So the gentleman needs to know that Mulungi has endo and she might have 2 weeks of functioning. Like I know I'm already on a countdown, and the next 2 weeks she's probably not going to be able to get out of bed. And I must appreciate that initiative, which brings you to the next question, Dr. T. What is it that the medical field can do? Because I think that in one way or another, I was reading something and they were saying that in the 80s and in the 90s, the mode of teaching for doctors had been that certain menstrual health conditions are for wayward women. They're for women who don't want to birth. They're for women who don't want to settle down. And this expose was reading how that mentality has affected even the medical field, where you are probably like on a count of 10, you're probably like 2 people. Of course, this is me exaggerating. I don't have statistics on that. But there's still a mentality of this is a woman's role and this is a man's role. So sometimes the men aren't excluded because they are wicked and evil, but it's because people don't like questioning the structures. What then is the role of you as a medic who has all this information? And I also realize that sometimes people respect authority. As Mulunja will come and speak about endometriosis till the cows come home, but if a medic says this, I mean, we see it on Twitter, doctors having jabs at women with fibroids. They hold this authority and they still are, saying, those women have fibroids because they don't want to birth. So what then is the role of a medical practitioner who has the authority that you do? Because at least for you, you've said, man, me, I'll take the awareness route. But we still have a huge chunk that for them still follow the patriarchal norms of this is a woman's thing, and yet they have all this authority to help us also break the ice as far as these conversations are concerned.
Okay, let me begin by saying this. Doctors are also part of society.
Yes.
Doctors also are human beings in society. Doctors are also male and female that were exposed to these clear boundaries that was placed right from the beginning.
Yes.
The reason why I would think differently, and I think other female doctors would think differently, although there are also some who also think differently, is because one, I am not just a doctor, I'm a female. So there are certain things that are not just textbook, they're also personal experiences. When it comes to things like fibroids, they were normally associated with women getting older. But I kid you not, right now, there is almost no female that you will find, almost none, in her 20s. Just go and do a random scan. Just get up, go and do a scan. I kid you not, more than 50% of the time, they are going to be fibroids. Whether that has been attributed to the changes in environment, just try it. Actually, ladies, just try it. Even if you're in your 20s. I know a lady, she's one of the women that I very close to me. She first experienced fibroids when she was 19.
Yeah.
19. And has become so big and so bad in that eventually, soon in her early 30s, she had to start doing, in her 20s, she had to begin looking into things like myomectomies. Get some of these fibroids out. Now, fibroids themselves are not necessarily the problem because these are called benign tumors that grow in the uterus because of our hormonal changes. As long as you are a woman in reproductive age, they're bound to come. That's why when a woman gets into menopause, the fibroids you have are going to recede by themselves because they're not being fed by the estrogen, because they're literally hormonal dependent. If someone has fibroids into menopause and above, there's a high chance that they are cancerous. So that is something that but most of the fibroids that are there that's why they'll tell you when you get into menopause they're going to go. You get what I mean? That is one. Number two, even us as doctors, we also fall in these norms of the male and the female and the cultural settings that have been placed. For me, I always say that, and this is just my opinion, for me, I always think that tradition is really good. Cultures are really good. But we need to understand that traditions and cultures are rules, and this may sound a bit not very nice, but there are rules and systems that were placed by people who died. You understand? And now, there's peer pressure from the dead, literally. And right now, we are the ones who are alive. Now, there are certain wonderful cultures that I believe need to be upheld. Uphold them. Like again, I said, I'm Mchiga. One of the cultures that my ancestors had was when a girl would get pregnant out of wedlock, she was thrown over falls. There were certain falls called the Chisizi Falls. And that's a foundation over which the hospital called Chisizi Hospital was built to literally rescue these girls. Now imagine getting pregnant and you're thrown over the falls, so the boys would either run or they would be exempted from the punishment. Now those are cultures which there are some people who still practice them in different ways.
Yes.
They do. And these are cultures which they don't make sense. And now they need not to be existent. And yet there are cultures like our dances, there are cultures around respecting people, whether it's the way we dress, whatever it is, the way we speak, that are still beautiful. And also we are also human beings that can also create our own new traditions. That's what I think. So for me, I think that the question that you asked, it is important that we put both men and women in conversations around men and women. Like, put men and women in conversations around men and women. Don't separate these things, because the more you separate them, you're going to create stigma, whether you like it or not. Because I will tell you for a fact that there are people out there, men out there that didn't, because I saw some guy that Solomon Bucci talked about. He talks about very many people, but this particular guy who was saying, my wife, if she wants to do a cesarean section, I can never permit that, yada yada. She can never come and do a C-section because women are becoming lazy. They don't want to push. That is something that he's airing with his full chest. Because he thinks that it's okay for him to air such things. He has no understanding of menstruation, and not to even mention pregnancy, not to mention labor. He doesn't understand. When I talk about things, options that are available now, like epidural, God gave you brains for you to create things, invent them, understand them. Now, whenever we talk about people like, the doctors want to kill us with their inventions, if you feel like it's going to kill you, don't do it. Like, these things are not forcing life. But what am I saying? These things are there with us, and they're going to be with our children. Every time you be delulu and think that you're going to separate them, you're not helping anybody. So for me, I think
you have to put it together.
We need to integrate this conversation, because it's not helping anyone. Even if it comes to things about premature ejaculation, sexual problems that men face, very many, by the way. That's why I began having conversations about how is a child made? How do you make a boy? How do you make a girl? Who determines that? Because men come and begin saying, me, you're not going to give me a girl child. That's not my child. I talked about the lady who had, she had 4 C-sections, and the man refused to pay for the 4th C-section because it was a girl. And it's the man that determines the sex of the girl, whether he knows it or he doesn't know it. It is him who does biologically.
I mean, there is violence around, domestic violence around that. So I actually understand. I agree with us having these conversations, but let's also stop excluding ourselves because sometimes the conversation is not, it's not drawn, but the minute someone would see a panel like this, like, we are a cousin. But I also need initiative on our part.
Next time we bring an Alan here.
But Alan needs to also make sure that the BBs of this world, from the things you've learned in this conversation, that you disseminate the conversation, not just militaristic camps.
Because also, you know that thing that they say, men teach men and women teach women. It's even biblical. It's easier for a man to hear from a man than for him to hear from me. The same way it's easier for a woman to teach about how to be a woman than for him to come and tell me, a woman, you should dress like this.
What do you know?
So,
what does community support look like? Especially with conversations around menstruation. I like that we've talked about the big issue. Like, back then it used to help to separate the boys and teach them to take them to their colleges. But we are now living in a world where we are in a nucleus family system. We have neighbors. So everyone needs to be knowledgeable. But let's take it a notch higher. What does practical community support look like, and how can it be, how can you have effective community interventions? We'll start with you, and then you'll give a doctor's perspective.
Okay, I think it goes back to the campaign that you've been running. What will you do? The work that Dr. T is doing is not for her, because first she read her books and she knows the knowledge in her head, but she understands that disseminating this knowledge in the most digestible way to multiple people who she can access on her phone, makes a big difference. I remember, I've now forgotten that term, but you'll remember that information of having a plus and a minus parent can cause
the ABO, the resource incompatibility, and ABO,
and then the pill, and then you take it in the first pregnancy. So, like, that information, I was like, oh, really? And then I think watching that video made me go check for my blood group at this 26 this year. Because like, hey, so it can affect. I thought she needs to just check the normal things. I didn't know that blood also plays a role in how you have the children. So making things that affect other people your problem. I think again, this whole thing of us, I remember around where we live, someone passed just maybe 5 houses down ours, and I was like, when I don't even know that person who passed, so I just seeing many cars on the road, which is not, it's not African. We are like, that's what it's not African. We are people who are concerned. I know we have extremes of being so concerned with what people are doing, but we are people who are concerned. I don't know, like, I'm again a privileged person. I can afford a pad. I can afford to go to a hospital in case my uterine health needs some consultations. It is not my concern that a girl in Nyamurungi, which is one of the first areas we worked with, cannot attend school because she can't access sanitary products. But I made that, myself and the 13 other women I work with, we made that our problem. And then we made also accessing this knowledge, because we also do digital advocacy on our different platforms, accessing this knowledge is a problem of other people as well. So I think it's essential that we can't always wait for someone from I don't know where to come and solve this problem. Make it your problem to ensure that people are told. It doesn't even have to be at the broad numbers of 1,000 people, but it can be just those nieces and nephews you see running around that don't know that at 9 their period may start showing up. You're just like, they'll find it on the internet. How and what type of knowledge are they finding? You have a 15, 16, 17-year-old siblings or nieces, nephews, cousins, and you know that in their head that's when the boyfriend starts, the girlfriend conversation and all of it starts, and you don't have a conversation to inform them about, by the way, you know that if you're going to partake in any of these activities, think about contraception or think about protection for yourself, because you know that their traditional mother and father are most likely not going to have that conversation, because why are they doing it either way? And it's natural, because I remember my siblings, I'm 26, my siblings, the last ones are 18, and my sister and I were talking about like, this was going to start kissing girls. And I'm like, oh my god, they can't, but they shouldn't. And then we sat down and we're like, but that's when did we start? And we want to not equip them with the right information, and then we fall in a mistake, and all of us are like, we should have said. So it's again, community support looks like making things that are not your problem. Your problem, go and read. I mean, yes, there's this thing of let's include each other in the conversation, 101% get it. And I think when you were talking about like premature ejaculation, and I was like, by the way, I don't read about this thing. Because I do like, that's not my problem. But I'm living here saying that that's actually my problem as well, because I guess I will be partnered at point X. So, and even if I'm not, I have access to young boys who might have concerns and queries that when they come and look at me and they're like, I'm like, I don't know. But there's so much information. There's so many people creating content. There's so many people who you can verify with. Uganda, we have excess health clinics around us. Like every 5 minutes you find a clinic. So like sit down and have these conversations, but also take it upon yourself to educate yourself, but also share that knowledge. And again, you don't have to be on social media, you don't have to be in the video like us, just the person next to you.
Can we take this a little notch higher? Have you heard of have any of you have heard of boys who menstruate?
No.
Have you heard of a boy who was menstruated?
No, unless they're intersex.
Have you heard of a boy who was menstruated? Have you heard of a boy who was menstruated? So recently I'm doing research on something called disorders of sexual development. What people sometimes, it's an umbrella term under where the people they used to call ambiguous genitalia, intersex would fall under. We have been getting children in the clinics. He grows up like a boy. He has normal male genitalia. He's like a boy. Like he plays, he does his things. And then when puberty hits, he starts bleeding. So when he's bleeding, they would first treat them as UTIs, because even the doctors do not know. Even people out there do not know, because these are generally not common conditions, but they are happening. And he begins having menstruation, he begins bleeding, and they treat him as a UTI. But they got to realize it was every month it's happening with cramps. After a few months, he starts getting breasts developing. After that, he begins having acne. After that, you understand? Now, these are boys that come from families that are, what they normally call Montuawansi. But even the urban people who probably be like, I'm taking my child to India, I don't know what's happening. if we have not yet normalized the normal occurrences, what do you think is going to happen? Because these diseases don't choose which family they're going to.
Yeah.
They don't decide who is they're going to, who is their next victim. Now, what would you do as a parent if this is your son? We have parents, of course, and that's the thing. Most of them first go to shrines, then they go to churches, then by the time they come, the boys are, things have already become a bit much going on. The boy is already traumatized and frustrated. You go to do a scan, you find it has a fully functional uterus and an ovary and a testis. And this is a boy who has been known in his community, like how you're saying, Alan and other people. So if, what I'm trying to say is that we are still have a very long way to go.
Yeah.
That's why I say these conversations need not be isolated. Because you will find that there is this boy and he's not going to come and just tell you. I mean, we have boys that are 2 years old and he's already fully in puberty. Something we call precocious puberty. He's 2 years old. He has the testis of a grown adult. He has the penis of a grown adult. His hoarse voice. And he's 2. What do you think that mom does or that father does? The mother will first go to church, go to a shrine. By the time she comes to hospital, you're like, now, I can't shrink the size of this penis, but let's try to hold this puberty down until he gets into puberty. What do you think is happening in his mind? So if the basics are still being hidden, how about complications or conditions that are that anomalous for people? So what am I saying? One, we need to bridge this gap. Let's have these conversations. That's why we talk. That's why I be like, when we talk, when I try to talk, we try to talk, be like, because these are things that are happening. So me, the only thing I'm saying, the community thing is, again, as a community, we need to do this together. We have to do this together. We have to talk. Those of us who are privileged with knowledge, privileged with education, we need to share these things with proper evidence-based information. Don't just assume and say, all women do this, all men do this. That's why for me, I don't like those conversations. I don't like those conversations because they alienate. Even the person who wants to learn can't learn because you're putting them under your brackets of all women or all men, which is not proper and it doesn't help anyone. So that's what I think.
Again, I think that for a long while, and the solution that you're giving, especially with community, is while before we were title based, I have my knowledge, it is here. It's good to earn from it, but I think now the challenges we are having is to now redefine what does community look like, what does community support look like, what are our realities now, and what do we collectively, what can we collectively do, rather than just being, that's Dr. T, so Mala, the individualism now is costing us because, again, as a people, we've always been in each other's business, whether good or bad. And now we need to redefine what that means. That means shared knowledge, that means shared experiences, and then shared solutions. Unfortunately, come from a structure where a lot of things are privatized. And as much as I would love for this to reach everyone in Uganda, the reality of the matter is there's someone who even can't afford data. Our internet coverage, our phone coverage is still down, and that also manifests in healthcare, where we're looking at the travel, the labor travel distance, especially for women in rural districts. Actually, sometimes I would take it a notch higher. I partly grew up in Katanga. When you talk about rural areas, my mind will probably run to Luwuka district, but there is a woman not even in the outskirts, right within Kampala, that has to travel far and wide to get healthcare. And so, as we're talking about community ownership and solutions, what are some of the alternative solutions that you think, our leaders, the government, can deploy, especially to shorten that gap, to make sure that people don't have to travel long distances? We now have what I call the India boom. 1 to 3 Gende India, 1 to 3 Gende Kenya, and yet we know that not very many Ugandans can afford that. Women are traveling long distances to get antenatal care. Girls are having to either talk to the nearest person or even the boys to get disinformation. So how do we bridge that gap, especially now with technology?
One, I think let's first put technology one side.
Yeah.
Then we have the conversation of the rural person.
Yes.
We're not going to put the rural person with technology in the same sentence. Again, like I said, when I was doing my internship, I did it from Chisizi Hospital. It's in the middle of Kabale and Rukonjiri. Literally, our borders are mountains and forests. For you to see a tarmac road, you have to drive for like 3 hours before you see a tarmac road. So that was where I did my practice. And it's so funny how I was supposed to go to Mulago, and then I just said I want to go to a rural place. For some reason, my heart kept saying I want to go to a rural. Maybe it was thought I can answer this question. Maybe I suffered that 1 year so that I can answer this question. But we're just asking. Yeah, but when I went to that place, I realized I love that hospital. Whether it's still the hospital of Chisizi, you are doing a wonderful job, and I'm going to tell you a few things that they have done.
Yes,
because they're one of the rural west. They did a few things. I remember they come from hills and what, and even in these hills, women are giving birth.
Yes.
So one of the things that they do is it's a PNFP. I think it's British funded, something under the Anglican Church. I think something like that. Some of the things that they used to do was, now let's first begin with the basics. I'll just tell you how amazing this system was. So me, I was like, this makes sense. Why doesn't everyone have this? One, when it comes to just things like blood donation or whatever, we have certain policies against, you can't just come and say, I want to give my mother blood and you give it. It's not how it works, especially when you're within like Kampala, even most of the areas. But now places like Chisizi, you can't put them under that policy. Because for you to say that someone has to, if they're in Chisizi, and by the time you get to Bar, it's like 4 hours.
Someone has gone.
Someone has already died. So they had like a self-sustaining system where you would actually be able to test blood to a point that O negative are the true universal donors. To the point that in that little village of ours, we knew maybe the 4 people who are O negative, and they were always willing. They will tell the person, like, at 4 a.m. they wake you up, there's this patient who is, we need urgent blood. They come to you come to the hospital, take off a sample, test the blood, treat it, then give it to the person. I was like, this is like, for me, I feel like a system, you don't have to be rich. Let the system just work. You get what I mean? Because you find that as doctors, we are there, we want to work. The nurses, the lab for the, but then the system, it binds you, breaks you. You find you're not able to function in your full capacity. So imagine telling them, you guys, we actually need blood. This one donates the blood, they do the treat and they give. That's one thing I liked about it. A rural area where distance is a problem. Number 2, for mothers that were high risk mothers, there's something that was called a maternity home. So for mothers who, let's say, for example, have what we call precious babies, or babies of moms who maybe the mom has had difficulty conceiving, maybe the baby is at a high risk of terminating, maybe the baby began threatening when it was like in second trimester wanting to come out, you had to do a sacrilege for her cervical, keep the baby in, they will do for them a maternity home. And in this home, it's a place within the hospital where they would keep the mom. So their moms would be there for like 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, because by the time, and their cost was subsidized, so that she's also able, it wasn't free. Because you can't sustain, I don't know, I think free things are easy to sustain. They are not, you guys. People keep on saying, you guys want money for this, but this money they also cost money. People don't get things from space. Like, there is a need for funding. The money is necessary. Let's not be delusional. So I keep talking about things. As long if you're able to afford, find ways, get insurance, educate yourself on how can I protect myself. Anyway, as we get back here. So these women would have a maternity home, and then she would be there and she's being monitored every day by a nurse at a subsidized. So she doesn't have to come from near Shenyo or whatever on the Great Trek or on a border that is hitting. By the time the pregnancy you are trying to preserve comes out. You get what I mean? So that is another thing that I found really beautiful. But then in place, there are also things that are already in place. Me, I'm telling you that the things are there. They just need to work. There is what we call village health teams or village teams. These are groups of people or trained people who are in a bit of lower cadres or muntu who want to see themselves. They get from a home and they're like, this Muzai has been here for long. We can be able to teach him. He wants to be able to teach. give him like a small fee. It is not even that high. Because those people don't need too much to survive. Like a small fee, give him like a bicycle. He goes out because he's that who knows his people.
Yes.
By the way, you don't know, like how you were saying that you come speaking your English. So be like,
which organization has sent this one?
Organization, who is even you're a witch. Like, this is a witch who has come to take our resources. This Mosaic who they trust will come and be like, by the way, there is this happening. If you're a woman and you see this, please report. If you're a child, if you see this, these are danger signs that we see, please tell us.
They listen to them.
They even be having small first aid measures they can give you in the meantime as you get to the hospital. You get what I mean? The problem that, however, because we had this conversation sometime when we were there, the problem that we have is that, of course, there are still also very small roads. So even access is difficult. You find someone who lives on the hill and you're seeing their house from like, it's like a dot in the middle of the hill. How are we going to reach that hill, Manage? We're not going to bring a plane. I mean, already we're having challenges with the road itself. Where is it going to land?
Where's the plane going to occur?
We already, those are things, but I think if the systems in place are actually embraced and they work, deploy more health workers in the systems. There is no reason a health worker shouldn't be having a job. You understand? Put them in these areas that are having people that are not there. Then make the systems work. May I believe you don't need to have a rich system.
It just needs to work, and
it will reach that person. It will reach them. So for me, that's what it is that I think.
So I would like to humble brag that my mom is a VHT. And she does such an amazing job.
Which area?
She's in Ndeje.
Yes,
and
beautiful.
Every time, like, it's so hard to see her. There are seasons where you can't see her because
the VHT is so passionate.
She was a teacher, then she transitioned into VHT. So I've actually seen how if the system works, if they're facilitated, they have everything. You can see how they save mothers, the community generally, a lot of time to go and line up in a government hospital. So I agree. I really wish that our Ministry of Health, our leaders knew the value, the value that these people do bring. So we are yappers. Love this for us now. Let's talk about the impact of the anti-rights movement on things like funding, because again, like you said, these things cost money. I am an chronically ill girlie. I know for a fact that you know I need cash. I mean, we also know that the insurance system hasn't yet gotten good ground and root,
accommodating the chronic illnesses.
If someone can't afford pads, how are they going to afford insurance care? So let's hear about how the increasing anti-rights movement, especially with the fact that we are seeing a lot of glorification of women going back to the kitchen. We need to birth more babies, as if we already don't have. I mean, I don't even think it's an African problem. Birthing babies, please go to Mulago right now, or go to any healthcare. But we see that we are getting these things copy and paste, and you know, we are taking on white nationalistic ideals as our problems, yet we already have our problems. How has that one have affected SRHR reach? Now let's first come back to Chibuga, or even to the areas where we would want to disseminate these conversations, these services. We are seeing NGOs closing down. I know a number that did, especially after Trump resumed presidency, but we're now having the sovereignty bill that is going to even curtail even more, that if a Ugandan, I mean, again, as an Endogali, I'm always one car wash away from the next surgery. So if we are having all this curtailing and then anti-rights, how has that affected the causes? You know, you are having to depend on local philanthropy. What has that looked like for you?
So for us, unfortunately, when we started with a cohort of NGOs that's when they had started being a little bit more strict on funding, on NGOs and getting registered. And obviously there's a lot of processes in order for you to even apply for grants and actually be successful. So we've always worked with local fundraising. That has worked for us. What I see now is we have, and I see that many other NGOs in the space are doing this. We're looking for ways to make the money now on. So we are moving from the space of looking for funding and then we just focus on building the systems for work, but also trying to build a business arm to each and every organization and support that we're offering in order for us to be able to afford doing the work for free. I don't know how I feel about both. I think for me it got to I think I'm conflicted. It's great to get we've not experienced it, so I can't speak from there, but it's great to get donor support from funders who have this money, but also in the same breath, I think for us, why our model worked for us before was we do not want to be in a position where we're very comfortable and then in the event that crisis like this happens, you just have to close shop because you can't even think of an alternate. And then I also think our thing has always been from the beginning, it's communities serving communities. I know that everybody in this room, you have 3,000. I know for sure. And you're going to give me 3,000 one way or another. I'm going to find a way to get it from you. And obviously it's more complex with the different work that different people do. But then also within now, we are building programs and events and tools for communities that can afford to buy these things in order for us to fund this work that we're doing on the pro bono end. I think it also, for us, why it works for us is our work will keep going whether we want or whether funders want or they don't want. We must find a way because this work needs to be done. It's not an option. It's not it's okay if we have, the girls will stay in school. The girls must stay in school because again, now when you talk about VHTs, which I'm like, oh, that's nice. Those girls are in the communities right now, or those, we deal with primarily girls. So those girls are in the communities right now. And if we don't see them getting done with school, we don't see them through being able to equip themselves with the necessary knowledge to support initiatives such as that, then we fail the larger community. So
I think I'd also want to know, especially on medical practitioners' side, do you think that this has created an impact, especially on like the local health center level, as far as access to SRHR is concerned?
Which exactly?
The anti-rates, but also the funding gap. Yes.
I think, one, right now, my practice now is mostly in Kampala and uptown Kampala. So that means that most of the people that I deal with probably are able to access these things, on their own. However, I know that there are women deep in there who fully rely on things that are being given to them, that are being donated, that are definitely there. I think it really definitely does. One, it definitely cuts down on availability of these things, that's one. But two, also accessibility. It means that if there are programs out there that were actually trying to teach or trying to raise awareness, they're no longer being funded. There are things like the HIV clinics. It's hard for you to just come and say, you know what, like here, I am HIV positive and where can I get it? No, people still don't do that. They can say, I have malaria and I'm going here. There are clinics that I know, for example, some places that have been I work where there were like private clinics for HIV. One of the things that I loved is under these donor fundings that were already there, the HIV clinics were always the most funded. The HIV clinics have the best documentation. That's why they have high research that is done and doable in them. The HIV clinics, severely organized. The workers there are extremely motivated. They are people who want to do their work because they're well paid. They have resources. They have the things that they need to do. They document their things. They keep them. If you need to do research under HIV, probably you find it's already been done, but you will get the data that it is that you are looking for. So when the funding was cut, then they had to do this thing, the integration of the health services, which now people who, for example, already had maybe a bit of bias, stigma, the ones who are coming in newly diagnosed, we already have teenagers who rebel from taking medication because they don't want to be seen or even understand what this exactly means. Now you find that it's a bit harder for them. The integrated system becomes a bit, because they fear this person is going to see me. We would have things like peer-to-peer, which are also funded. I think that's how, for me, I felt it more and feared for it more on the HIV system. The integrated system will work, but of course, the other system was much better. Yeah.
So, which brings me to an if question.
Yeah.
Let's imagine the government, by some miracle, decided to increase like the SRHR budget by like 10%. What, in your opinion, would be the most immediate win that you would love to see?
You see, the thing is, for funding in the health sector, it's not even just 10%. 10% means more lives are saved. 10% means more people have access to health care. 10% means more people do not need to suffer for things that are obvious. That's 10. That's not just 10%.
The number.
The things that we would do with more resources. For me, I've always said, maybe let me speak it into existence. Maybe one time I will have a facility that is fully funded, like by some organization that funds my facility. I would want to give free healthcare. Like, I would want to be able to know that people can come to my facility, and even if it's a subsidized price or it is fully free, and they get top-notch quality healthcare. You don't necessarily have to be luxurious, but you know that you're going to have a health worker that is actually caring about you. You know you're going to have access to what it is that you need. Of course, it may not be everything. Maybe someone needs like a complicated surgery. Some of those things tend to need a bit more funding. But like just that small amount of money, it can do so much. Like, it means saving a life. You get what I mean? When I was a medical student, there's where I used to practice. We used to move in different government hospitals. And there's where I used to be humbled by how bad lack of infrastructure, lack of resources can do. It kills. No, it murders. It's homicide. It kills. There was a time when, so at that point, for me, I've always loved, for me, obstetrics and pediatrics were always mine. I loved sexual and reproductive health conversations. I'm very open about them because I don't see the point of hiding. Because all of us
are doing it.
Everyone. We are a result of everyone. So there was this time when we had just we went to this facility, and the doctors that were there were ready to work. The nurses and midwives were on ground. There's no one who had dodged work. Everyone was available. But that night, so we began learning. I had just learned about something called, there's something called uterine rupture that happens in women who have labored for long or have complications of pregnancy, and the uterus eventually ruptures. So one of the things that is a danger sign or something that shows we are impending rupture is something called a Bandl's ring. And when you're pregnant like this, you begin seeing a ring or like a constriction forming. It's like as if that is being formed, and like it's a compression that is like a ring around your abdomen that shows your uterus anytime is going to just pop and rupture. So this one time I had just learned about that. So I found this woman on the labor ward, and she had been laboring for like over 20 hours. I remember how people feel like, oh my God, I can't not push. If I don't push, I'll not be woman enough. Rubbish. I don't even know. Those things annoy me because what do you mean you're not woman? Who wants to be Hebrew? So like, no, I'd be like, why do people tell people this? Okay. So anyway, that's my passion. Anyway, so this woman, I found she had a Bandl's ring. Now for the doctor, it is like, the thing I've been reading about I am seeing it. It's like this. But in real life, this is someone who's going to die. So I looked at her and I was like, oh my God. So I immediately went. I was a student at that time. Remember, you're like literally the lowest in the hierarchy. I tried to call the person who was above my time was an intern. He was already like dealing with a mother who had actually was also impending rupture. The medical officers also were dealing. Everyone was on ground. The theater was like this, like they were full. Now me who was here looking at my band of, and I looked like I was in luxury, because when I reached the theater, I couldn't begin telling the doctor there, I have a mother with a Bandl's ring. There were two mothers who had already ruptured, and they were walking, and the fetal person, you would see a baby is like a hand, like you're seeing, like the skin. This is skin underlying. Yes. Your skin that's covered, but you can see like a leg, like you're able to see. That means that the breech, which is the uterus and the abdomen, the baby is just in the abdominal cavity itself. So the mother is there. She's going to die at any time. She's trying to walk around the theater. She's leaking. So what that told me was, in as much as you will have the people that are on ground that want to work, everyone is full. Even if you say you're going to bring all the doctors to come on that day to support, they're not going, where are they going to put them? I'm not going to come and operate from here.
From the ground,
you understand?
yes.
And also remember, now you're in a regional referral hospital. If you can't handle, refer them to a national referral. The nearest is private. This people can't afford private. By the time they go to Mulago, they'll have died.
Yeah.
So now you find that you're there with your situation, like, Kali Singa, we had more funding. Singa, we had more buildings. Singa, we had more theaters.
More beds,
Singa, we had more. You understand? So that's a funding problem.
Yeah.
So that's for me what I would say. Even if it's like a 10%,
It would do so much. But the current campaign, the What Will You Do campaign, one of the statistics that we have is about 62% of younger girls go without sex education. And especially with your line of work, it's crazy how there's an intersection, but in a sense of do you think, what's the extent of the contribution of period poverty, especially and amongst the communities, but also the lack of comprehensive education? Do you think that it also forces very many girls out of school? I remember I stitched a TikTok where someone was asking what the intersection is, what's the link between period poverty and teen pregnancies, and for them they didn't seem to get it, because what do you mean, I don't have pads, let me go and have sex? Underlying the fact that if you're not 18, if you're 18 and below, you can't consent. But what do you think as far as that lack of sex education, but also overall? Our education system is we are still telling people, white people discovered places that were already existing. So in your experience, how has that forced girls out of school, and what can we do briefly?
Okay, I think on one axis, as you mentioned, the scenario where people go, I think they're taken advantage of, is a word. When young girls are taken advantage of, because I think one of the stories we read very early on to our research in deciding to focus on period poverty was a young girl had been told by a builder that he'll buy her a pack of pads for 3K, and if she's allowed, if they have sex, and this girl got pregnant, and that's now a whole other problem completely, right? So what people don't understand is you will go to lengths to solve a problem, but then create another problem, right? So access is very important. Subsidized prices, free pads. Like, we can afford multiple things. We can afford free reusable pads. If we really,
if you can buy cars every election year for MPs,
there is something for reusable pads. There is something small. And again, something that we went on to do. They're not as durable as the pads that we give them, but when we do workshops in the school, we work with things that are readily available, or t-shirts, because someone can go to Owino and get a shirt of 1K, 2K, and is able to use it, all t-shirts, towels, at least one period, like skilling people with what they have within their vicinity. And then the other thing on knowledge, again, if people don't understand what ovulation is, if people do not understand that even if you take the morning after pill after ovulating, you are most likely, it's not a blessing, the child did not pass over the morning after pill, it is most likely going to happen that you shall conceive, right? If people don't understand their different phases and how to work around them and how to plan them and how to count their days and how to take care of themselves, because period poverty is not just the lack of access, it's also the lack of knowledge. So if we don't go into the schools and into these communities when people are young, then we are robbing them of the choices that they can make that are more informed. So I think that's what I would say. Like they intertwine, they tie into each other. You must have the conversations about bodies. People have to understand, even again the conversation we were having earlier with the boys present, so they can be able to ask. Because now when boys, they'll go to this is an assumption of a scenario, like those bubalas when they hang out with older men, and they'll hear a myth that one older man, and then they come and convince a young, their classmate that, I heard that, because we went to Ngora and the girls were saying that boys told them that if they touch their backs when they're having their period, the cramps disappear, and the boy's hand can make the cramp disappear. So I remember just looking, just like, there are many stories that sound like this. the information is just for that girl to convince that boy. It's both of them are aware of this knowledge, and then they can make more informed decisions and take the necessary precautions. Yeah.
Indeed. From Sao, I would like to especially talk about contraceptives, but from a perspective of some of the conversations that you have online, where you've talked about, patients who end up with early pregnancies or having more children than they would like to. What are some of the cultural and social narratives around that? Because yes, we're having these conversations, but you can still see that we are still entrenched in, once they pay your bride price, yours is to just pop out children.
As how?
Or it's sad though that this is the mindset. We, together with Frauen and other organizations that we usually work with, especially domestic violence victims, you get a woman beaten, slashed with a panga because the man found out she's taking contraceptives. Some of them equate it to
sleeping around.
Yes, you're being promiscuous. What else do you think is stopping a number of women from actually, or even the men, because children are not made unless there was only one Virgin Mary, and how can we navigate these mindsets? Because even the educated, unfortunately, a man will tell you, I married you so that I don't have to use a condom. I married you so that I can have access to you. There is that assumed continuous consent. What, as a doctor, in your experience, have you seen, and how can we navigate those mindsets?
Again, it will go back to awareness. Again, it goes back to have integrated conversations.
Yes.
Involve these people in these conversations. Now, one of the things that I found from working in both rural areas and urban areas, and then rural urban areas, is most of these problems are more common among the uneducated man and the uneducated woman. You get it? That is where the highest. Me, when I worked in the rural areas, I would see things. I've told you that I saw a woman who she had forces and the man refused to pay for the C-section because she was a girl. Now imagine what happens if maybe he tells her you can't, use birth control, and then she uses the birth control. By the time he's not paying for a child you have birthed, then how about birth control?
Yeah.
But I've also seen women who, in their capacity, like the little that they know, she goes and says, you know what, Musao? I have been told I want to learn which methods can I use that my husband
won't
not know about. And you find she has had like 5 children. She comes and she gets the injection.
Yeah.
Now, like I keep saying, I don't know. Me, I will keep calling people out and letting you know. There's no business a 21-year-old, a 19-year-old girl you're doing getting the injection. You don't have business using the injection. You get what I mean? Because these things, it depends. That's why I say whenever you're going to look for a birth control method, sit with your obstetrician, sit with your health worker. Talk to them and understand what works for you and what does not. If you know that you're sexually promiscuous, and for example, you're a female, you don't normally use condoms. You don't say, I don't feel it when I use the condom. Or for example, you say you have different sexual partners, you don't know their status, you don't know what's happening. Then an IUD isn't the method for you. Because you're now going to get pelvic inflammatory disease. Next thing you know, you're going to have infertility. All these things which are not necessary because you chose a method that wasn't for you. If you know that you're someone who has a busy schedule, like myself, you're up and down, you don't even have clear sleep and wake cycles. Some nights you're awake for 48 hours, sometimes you're awake for 24 hours, sometimes you get good quality sleep. Now, how are you going to be on a pill? Because a pill needs you to be orderly. Make sure that every 8 a.m. you're taking. Now the 8 a.m. comes, you post your call, you've slept, you've missed your pill. That's how you end up getting pregnant. You understand? There are women who you find they react to different hormonal methods. If you're reacting to hormones that are short term, how about if you put it in long term? Therefore, you find that when she's on these methods, she's going to bleed throughout the entire time it is there. And you've embedded this thing in your body. If, for example, you're active to hormones and you get the injection, and you're a young girl, it means that this injection, remember this injection has been, the hormone has been injected into you. And you have to wait for it to get out of your system. It means for that whole long time, you don't know how it's going to treat you. If it's the implant, and you're using the hormone, we can remove it when the symptoms come. You get what I mean?
But the injection is different.
But the injection is different.
But can I ask, sorry to interject,
It's okay.
like the details you've given on how someone can decide on which birth control method that works for them or suit them. That's not the information that's usually given at health clinics. There's very few people who you ask, they're like, you try and see.
But that's why I'm saying it's important that you have a conversation with an obstetrician. Because
Not
if you have
over the counter.
Not over the counter.
No, but even in hospitals.
Obstetrician.
No, in hospitals.
Obstetrician. Because you see in
What if I
hospitals.
can't afford an obstetrician?
No, the thing I'm saying is, to the best of your ability. Because even in those low areas, they're there, but people are equipped. Then there are those of us, for me, I am passionate about this conversation. Me, if a girl comes into my consult, we are going to talk. Like, I'm going to teach you, we shall talk. I've had girls who come for me, I personally cannot give you abortion medications. I personally cannot do these things for you. But then I've had girls who I have to tell, you know what? This is the system, this is how it is. These are some of the options you have. There is options like there's teenage pregnancy clinics that are like in Molago, or there's even other methods that are available. Me, I'll give you information. You decide what you're going to do. Because I have seen a 14-year-old girl lose her uterus to a hysterectomy because of a septic abortion. So these are things that for me I have seen, and I wouldn't want someone to get them because of my beliefs. You get what I mean? However, the methods that I'm saying is, even as health workers, the things that we need to know as health workers, we keep having conversations in full and look at a person as an individual. When you come to my room, if I'm busy, I'm going to tell you, you know, for you, I think you need some more time. Let me first clear my queue, then I'm going to call you even after my shift. And then we go into, because I know that when I educate you, you're also going to educate another person. You understand? It means that this information is going to move. I had, the reason why I talk about this, I had a girl, she was 17. She came, her sister was, I think, 30. She had like 3 babies. She was on the injection. But they're like sisters. So you know, as when you get older, somehow the age gap begins becoming smaller. I feel like, oh, we're like the same age. And then now for us, because she hears her sister use the injection, she also goes and gets an injection. Now she comes in with continuous bleeding. Continuous bleeding. She was losing weight. She was persistently anemic. All these things were happening. Even if they're not happening, you know that when you when the injection is withdrawn, it can even take for you a year for you to regain fertility. You understand? Because the hormones are still underlying. You don't know what your mechanics are doing inside there. So when you have a conversation, that's what I'm saying, as health workers, when we take the initiative to say, I am here and I want to teach. But also, like I said, not everyone has the skill or the passion to teach. Not everyone has the endurance. There's a reason why you're going to go to this doctor and they're going to give you time. Another one will be like, nah, it's not this deep. Honestly, I just want to clear these queues and then go home. You get what I mean? And person will say, you know what, me, I'm going to teach people, etc. And the others who don't. So every person is different. So educate yourself, like you were saying. Educate yourself, like you have to be able to go out there and research. Don't just be, so that when you come, me, I like patients who come and say, I checked this thing on the internet. Like some people will say that there's some doctors who don't like being questioned or being, I've heard about that. And there are those who are like that. Because again, people are individuals. I like someone who comes and tells me, you know what, there's this thing that I read and I want to know, what do you think about it? I saw that this is something that can work for me. And then I will equip you with knowledge based on what it is that you know. So again, conversations at length, do your research. Don't just be doing a one thing fits all. It doesn't fit all. The people who genuinely have latex allergies, genuinely, there are those who just be saying, I have an allergy because they don't want to use condoms. But there are people who genuinely have, meaning you using condoms is probably not going to be the method of use for them, because now other issues are going to come. So like I said, conversation will help to bridge these gaps. Have integrated conversations. Let it be both male and female. Teach them both. You understand?
So the knowledge is not limited.
It's limited. Even there are men who, for example, you find that for you, the different methods you've used, all of them have failed to work. Then your husband knows, okay, there are certain male methods that are there. Maybe we have 5 kids. Do we need more? There's an option of a vasectomy. Maybe there is, there are different methods. Like, if you're doing things together, it's easier and even to educate. So I think, I'd
also like to underscore, since I've read somewhere,
guys,
contraceptive methods may not necessarily protect you from STDs. So again, talk to your doctors
and see what.
let's first add that. They not may not necessarily. They don't.
They're for other things.
I beg you to zoom my face on that part when I say don't. They don't protect, except if it's a condom.
Condoms, yes.
They don't, please guys, protect you from STDs. Do not be listening to Dulu. If anything, they can make them worse.
Yeah.
So if you have an IUD and you're getting an STD, you will feel it up to your uterus, inside there. So yeah.
For us, we are here to give you the information. Bibi, have you heard?
This video is going to become like 5 videos. Wow.
We're almost wrapping up, don't worry, ladies. I would like to know, and this is your if question. So imagine you are sitting on a district health officer position today. And there's like one practical fix. Like you have one job to fix, especially the bridge between the information gap and every Ugandan woman, or even every Ugandan, because we've agreed that this is information that should be readily available. And you have the power to just help them understand their own reproductive health rights. What would you do?
I don't know why the word that's come to my mind was to create health clinics, but they're not. I would create conversation clinics. Again, from what I had mentioned earlier and what we've discussed through the conversation, people listen to people within their community and trust them. So you find leaders within those respective communities, equip them, but also have healthcare professionals who they recognize. Because every other healthcare, that doctor, this corner, like you go, even if it's just here within, you go to let people know, at this hospital there is that specific doctor. You go to Nigeria people say, at this hospital there's a specific doctor. So you find people who people will listen to and partner them with community leaders who they also have a respect and authority of. And then you have these conversations, because when you normalize the conversations around contraceptives, then someone will go to the hospital and actually ask that question. When you go to schools and normalize the conversation of having integrated spaces to teach on menstruation, then schools within that community itself will be able to hold space for us to actually have the conversations. So my thing is, I've always thought, and I believe that it starts with the mind. If the mind rejects the idea of learning and the idea of seeking for this help, then there's absolutely nothing you can do. However much funding, however many hospitals, however much you can convince the mother who's having the ring that she needs to have a C-section now, if it's not registered in her mind and she's completely told, I would rather die than be considered not a woman, then there's nothing you can do. Even if a theater is open and there's a doctor and you even say for free, we shall do this, I want to just save your life, it won't happen. Even if you go into these communities with free contraceptives for different bodies and you test and you have doctors lined up at these hospitals, no one is going to come to them if they have not been convinced mentally that this is a necessary step for them to take. Even if you go to universities and offer, again, free contraceptives or free conversations on condoms and whatnot, if those kids are convinced that you're going to play with their sexual experience, you're doing absolutely nothing. So again, it starts with the conversations. That's what I would do, because we may that would be the practical, because we may look for the funding and we may equip the health clinics and the hospitals, and we still don't have people walking in because their mindsets are limited around the conversation.
Anything you'd like to add, Doctor?
I think I agree with her. I think, again, conversation, because people learn from stories and people learn from relatable experiences as opposed to the theories, as opposed to the things that we think. What is actually on ground? Like you asked, what is on ground? You're not going to go there and you put up your infrastructure and someone is like, I'm always so amazed when you talk about the A and negative, the rhesus and the blood group thing. I was so amazed. I have, since I think those are the videos that I did initially and even do now, that still persistently have the highest viewership, have the highest in millions. You know what I mean? Because these are things that people actually don't know and they want to know. I have met couples whereby now I go to like a fellowship or something, and then someone is going to be like, oh my God, my wife and I used to have like a lot of miscarriages. We went to actually find out, we got to realize how bad this is. Because there's some people who are delulu out there and they tell them, Brother, you don't have to take those injections. I didn't take them and nothing happened to me. You get what I mean? And you forget that everyone is different. Yeah, because I've seen like a woman who maybe has had one child and then she had like 8 miscarriages because of such things. So the whole issue is conversation. I would bring these conversations to the youngest of minds so that they are able to assimilate. I would bring these conversations to schools. And integrated, these things of saying, what did they used to call them? The senior lady. Yeah. But senior lady is calling the girls from P3 up to, why are you starting from P3? Also bring the girls in P1. Yes. Tell them what's happening. Because the girl in P1 to me that maybe that is being molested and she doesn't even know what's happening to her. Yeah. Bring this information, of course, age appropriate, but bring these conversations. Male and females need to understand what happens. Even the same things where you find a man has a problem, let's say for example it's a premature ejaculation, or it is something that's going on with his penis, or maybe his penis is not growing, or he has a penis that is smaller. The things that maybe for them cause them problems, and then he tells you and all you do is now begin laughing. Now you're laughing as what? Like, so how do you help society? Okay, if it was your son, would you be having the same laugh? Yeah. You get what I mean? You're not going to be laughing when it's your child telling you. And if you know you're the kind of woman who laughs at a man's things that are not functioning, how would your son tell you that I have a problem? You get what I mean? Because how are you helping the situation? So for me, I think have the conversations, let the girls understand that. And of course I do understand that there's still a very good structure that comes with gender placement of roles. Like for me, I believe that there's a certain structure that is still necessary, but there must be also an integration that is also necessary, because you're not going to come and tell me that because I'm a woman, I should produce until I die. You understand? But also I do understand that there is roles that could be better done by a feminine woman and roles that are better done by a man. Those are there, but also we know for a fact that there are roles that are feminine that men can do well, and roles that are masculine that women can do well. But I think that, so it's important that as a woman I have the best knowledge about my body as a woman, but also it's important that the next man next to me understand how that works. It's important that as a man I know the best way, and men tend to like to run away from this conversation. They tend to like to act like they are bad men until the end and the things are not standing, but they don't stand for long. And it's important that yes, the man knows himself best, but it's important that also the next woman understands, so that if you know better, you do better.
We had an eye-opening and a very exhaustive conversation around medical practitioners, SRHR, menstruation, and these two ladies are already doing with their platforms, with their time, what they're able to do. I have provided a platform for them to also just further the conversation, but the big question at the end of this conversation is, what will you do? Are you going to choose to be the prefect that disseminates better information? Are you going to be the headmaster that makes sure that Yambi community can come through and have conversations around menstruation? Or you can invite Dr. T. We need to see how we can collaborate and use the knowledge that we have interchangeably to make the society better, so that we are not the undoing of our own knowledge that we have been equipped, especially for such a time as this. Thank you so much for watching. In case there is anything that the ladies said that has tickled your fancy, that you've learned, drop it in their comments. We'll also leave details of their platforms so that you can check them out, but they're already famous. We won't give you Alan's number though. Thank you so much, Bibi and Alan, for doing this with me. I will catch you in the next episode of Thrive with Mulungi. For now, again, what will you do?